Do this. Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 6th, 2022. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you're here. You may observe the meeting, however, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply to you as quickly as possible. With that, let's begin with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner McCarville.
Here.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Here.
Commissioner Grove.
Here.
Commissioner Seal.
Here.
Commissioner Yearsley.
Here.
And absent are Commissioners Lorcher and Wheeler.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. It is an amended agenda and H-2021-0087 Apex West Subdivision and H-2021-0090 10-mile RV storage. Actually, Apex West Subdivision will be opened only for the purpose of being continued. And 10-mile RV storage is requesting withdrawal. If you're here tonight to testify on either of those applications, we will not be taking testimony this evening. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda, and we only have one item on the consent agenda, the approval of minutes for the December 16th, 2021 Planning and Zoning meeting. Could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So at this time, we'll briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. The staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called on only once during public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who signed up on our website in advance to testify. If you are here in person, please come forward. And if you are on Zoom, you will then be unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and our clerk will run the presentation. After all of those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on the topic, you may press the raise hand button on the Zoom app, or if you are listening on the phone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you are listening on multiple devices, a computer and a phone, for example, please be sure and mute those extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you're finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will no longer have the ability to speak. Please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant has finished responding to questions and concerns, we'll close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make final decisions and recommendations to city council as needed. So at this time, I would like to open the public hearing for H-2021-0087 Apex West Subdivision, and they are requesting a continuance to February 3rd due to the proof of public hearing notice sign posting not being submitted to the city within the required time frame prior to the hearing. I think they had actually requested January 20th, but it's pretty full agenda already. And so we're looking at February 3rd on that. do we have any further comments from staff?
No, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
move to continue file H 2021-0087 to the hearing date of February 3rd, 2022. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to continue H 2021-0087 to February 3rd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is H 2021-0090 10-mile RV storage. And that application is requesting a withdrawal. So I don't believe, do we need a motion of any kind? It's just being withdrawn. Okay, moving on. Next item is H 2021-0075. It is continued from December 2nd, Rachman East Eagle View Apartments. And we'll begin with staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This item was continued, as noted, in order to get ACHD's report to understand what's going to happen with Rolling Hill Drive. To allow more time to address the issue with the out parcel at the north boundary of the site, which will be an enclave if this property is annexed, and to work on enforcement of no construction traffic on Rolling Hill Drive. The most recent draft staff report issued by ACHD earlier today states ACHD is supportive of the applicant's request for sole access to the site to be provided from the west from Silverstone Way and Overland Road, with emergency access only via Rolling Hill Drive, if an updated operational analysis is submitted for the intersection of Silverstone and Overland Road. ACHD will determine if restricting the site access to Rolling Hill Drive to emergency only will be acceptable based on the updated analysis and district policy. If determined acceptable, no additional off-site improvements will be required to Rolling Hill Drive, including traffic calming measures. A cul-de-sac will be required to be constructed at the terminus of Rolling Hill Drive. If determined not to be acceptable, or if the applicant chooses not to restrict access to Rolling Hill, the applicant shall be required to restrict Rolling Hill Drive on Overland Road to ride in, ride out only, construct passive traffic calming measures on Rolling Hill, improve Rolling Hill with 24 feet of pavement, 3-foot wide gravel shoulders, and 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk on one side of the road within existing right-of-way. Construct a mini roundabout at the terminus of Rolling Hill Drive and enter into a CDA to replace the crossing over the 5 Mile Creek. The applicant would be restricted to phases 1 and 2, the residential portion of the development, and may not proceed with phase 3, the office portion, until the existing residential properties on Rolling Hill Drive are purchased and annexed into the city with commercial zoning. When there are no remaining residential homes on Rolling Hill Drive, ACHD may reclassify this roadway as a collector or commercial road and require additional improvements at that time. Since the last hearing, an updated concept plan was submitted as shown for the multifamily residential development that depicts 20 extra parking spaces along the driveway at the northern boundary of the site. This is planned to be a private street in the future. These spaces could serve as guest parking, but don't meet the requirements for off-street parking as they are on-street. The ACHD report also expresses concern pertaining to adequacy of available parking proposed in the multifamily portion of the development and the potential for overcrowded on-street parking on Rolling Hill Drive, as ACHD Traffic Services has received several complaints about overcrowded on-street parking in the city with new apartment complexes. The report states it appears there are more tenants per apartment unit, causing parking issues on adjacent public streets near apartment complexes in general due to lack of affordable housing. For these reasons, staff is recommending the minimum amount of parking required for the use is provided internal to the development. A minimum of 11 additional spaces are needed. Staff is recommending the following changes to the staff report. The first bullet in your hearing outline, please disregard. It was pertaining to minimum 7-foot wide sidewalks to be provided where parking stalls abut sidewalks. The applicant did submit an updated site plan that shows that they are complying with that. The previous site plan did not include the curb dimension in that, so they're good on that. I am asking for a new condition to be included requiring construction traffic to access the site from the west from Silverstone and Overland Road intersection rather than from South Rolling Hill Drive, as committed to by the applicant at the last hearing. And also modification to condition A1G, a development agreement provision pertaining to ACHD required offsite improvements to Rolling Hill to simply require compliance with ACHD's requirements. And then one additional condition that is not on your hearing outline for the applicant, I believe they committed to this at the last hearing to provide an access easement to that out parcel along the north boundary so that the property owner can maintain weeds or anything else on the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Wardle with Brighton. My address is 2929 West Navigator Drive, Suite 400, Meridian, Idaho 83642. If I can, I'd like to share my screen on this. Appreciate the opportunity to come back. At our last hearing back in the beginning of December, there were a few items specifically related to traffic that were raised. One of the issues was that we had not received an ACHD staff report at that time, which had left some open-ended questions. The other one was also regarding Rolling Hill Drive and how that would be treated with the concerns of the existing homes on Rolling Hill Drive. After that meeting, we immediately had two conversations. One was with the Meridian Fire Department to talk about whether Rolling Hill Drive could be emergency access only. And the second conversation we had was with the Ada County Highway District on, first off, where were they with their traffic study, but could we also consider that as an option? An interim report was submitted. But from there, we went back and forth several times, and I'd like to kind of discuss where we landed. I would like to note from Meridian Fire Department, they indicated that yes, it could be used as emergency access only. So provide the appropriate turnaround at the end of the road, but also it could be bollarded or some other mechanism that would ensure that they could get through, but access from the commercial property and from the apartment project wouldn't access Rolling Hill Drive, that it would remain just as it was. So tonight we wanted to talk specifically about that Rolling Hill Drive. ACHD, they did provide an updated staff report. There were two options. Option one, which I place in front of you, talks about using Rolling Hill Drive as emergency access only. The criteria there that they want to have us provide them, and our traffic engineers are working on that, is updating the traffic study that showed the trips that would be on Rolling Hill Drive and moving those to Silverstone. Silverstone is a collector. It is a signalized intersection, and what that would be. We don't have that where we've been able to provide that to ACHD yet, but they are asking for that, and we will. Option two is that we do use Rolling Hill Drive, and that Rolling Hill Drive would need improvements to it, including the access out onto Overland. We've concluded, however, and have talked with a few of the neighbors, that the approach that we want to take is to do emergency access only, is to provide that needed turnaround at the end of that public road, provide the appropriate approved restriction onto at the end of Rolling Hill from the neighbors of the south and us to the north, so that fire could get through, but the access couldn't be made from residents or businesses out of the project, but they would go to Silverstone. We still need to provide that report, but we feel like the trips that would go to Silverstone, it can be accommodated. There's a signal there. And as I mentioned, I have spoken with a couple of the neighbors, either by phone or via email, face-to-face, just discussing that we are pursuing this as an option. So what does that mean? Just a quick exhibit here is just showing our internal circulation and how that traffic would come out to Overland Road on Silverstone. It could also access Rackham Way, but Rackham Way would be a right in, right out only. So any trips that wanted to go out there, they could use that. But Silverstone would be the point of access to it. We do understand what the neighbors have asked, the concerns about those trips on there while they still are residences. The comprehensive plan does show that at some point that will transition to something that it is something different than it is today, but those plans aren't there today. And so we're trying to do our best to listen to what they've asked. In fact, this was very specific at the hearings, and the last hearing was, can we use Rolling Hill as emergency access only? We believe that yes, we can. And like I said, we still need to check that box with ACHD on providing the updated study, but I think we will all be able to note and agree that putting those trips to a signal on a collector road is the better option at this time. Like I said, ACHD has requested that we provide them with an updated analysis of that intersection. It's in process. We will provide that to them shortly, but like I said, we're hopeful that they will be able to extend that determination that Silverstone is in fact the appropriate place at this time for that access to occur. As Sonia mentioned, there was an update to the site plan. We are providing some additional on street parking as noted here, kind of along the north area. I do want to note that we do meet the parking requirements for all of the residential units. We do meet that. The difference here, the rub here is the amenity element of the project. We had not calculated the parking for that. There has been, I guess that has varied from project to project, but in this case, staff indicated that we did need to calculate that. And so really we are meeting the parking requirements for all the residential units. And we are able to provide additional on-street parking, which would be guest parking on those parallel stalls to the north. We went through pretty extensively before, and I can go back and answer any questions that you have regarding the project if they are, but it felt like the open items before you that we wanted to discuss tonight were the ACHD traffic study. Do we have that? Yes, we do. And are there solutions for Rolling Hill at this time? Yes, there are. The solution that we are pursuing is the emergency access only. And that's what we're proposing. And we're hopeful that at the conclusion of our updated traffic analysis of that intersection, that ACHD will agree with that as well. We respectfully request that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the conditional use permit, and also that the commission transmit to the council with a recommendation for annexation, rezoning the preliminary plat. And I stand for any questions that you might have tonight.
I'll start off because I don't want it to be a surprise to anybody. And this did come fairly late. So even though the option you'd like to move forward with on Rolling Hills Drive is the emergency access only, that is still predicated on that traffic study. So I just could you talk a little bit more about what option B really is and what that entails?
Well, option B is the option that has been option number 2. I will tell you that there are conversations even within ACHD about the importance of using Silverstone. John Wasson, who's the traffic who is the liaison that I think you see quite frequently on these correspondences, his own concern about using Rolling Hill. So they're just asking us to reallocate what would be those future trips, which is at build out about 2,500 daily trips. The peak hours are significantly less than that, and what that would mean to that intersection. Preliminarily, we're being told that there is not a significant impact. Will there be traffic at Silverstone? Yes, but that signal that's there and the nature of the road as it's currently built, we'll be able to accommodate it. We don't have a full report to give it ACHD, but that's what we're being told, that it appears that it will function. ACHD at the same time needs to review that. And I think it would be important for this commission and even the city council to indicate their concurrence with that and ask that that be the result. Even if there is a little bit of overloading at Silverstone, that overloading today is better than the use of Rolling Hill.
And if you could maybe elaborate a little bit, I know there was the little enclave property, was there
Yes.
an
There,
update on that?
Madam Chair, you're referencing I hope you can see my little hand right here on the screen, but there's a little piece right there. As of today, we have a written purchase agreement for that. And so we will close that transaction and we'll include it. I will note, we're talking about 14 feet. So its sole purpose, its improved purpose is a landscape buffer. Its use right now is our weeds, but we will make that part of the landscape buffer. So that's what we're doing. We will acquire that.
I think everybody just didn't want to see it become weeds permanently.
Nor do we, because it will not show well for the entryway into the city.
Madam Chair,
I'm leaving the parking question to somebody else, so.
I'm going with the Rolling Hills portion of it right now. John, there's got to be a turnaround there at the end of the road if that ultimately is the way it's going to be built out. Will that be, are you going to set that back and put that on your property? How will you accommodate that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Casanelli, a couple options. We have been in conversations with the owner here on the east about acquiring property there so that turnaround could happen south of the boundary. And so that there is a very clear delineation. There's another option, which I think is a little less desirable, but we own this parcel right here, which is just under 180 feet from the terminus. That would give us an opportunity to do it there. But our preference is to work with this owner here and provide the turnaround right at the boundary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody else can talk about parking.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
I got a couple of questions. So continuing on with that, the terminus there, is that going to be marked no parking?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, yes, it would be marked as no parking. That's actually a requirement. Many cul-de-sacs are not signed as no parking, but it's actually a requirement that they not be parked on. And yes, we would sign it at the time that we construct it. And I guess the other kind of segue to that one is the importance of getting that turnaround in at the commencement of our construction. Because there was question about construction traffic as well. So those things would merge together. But yes, we would get that in at the very beginning and it would be no parking.
So you're trying to basically put that in as part of phase one.
Yes.
Okay. I'll ask the question about parking. And there seems to be some discrepancy on that. And I mean, the staff has been pretty critical of the parking, and then not only that, but the ACHD report is critical of basically the city of Meridian for their parking standards. So, I mean, what do you propose, be done about that? I mean, I've got a couple of ideas floating through my mind. One of them is to just make the private drive that you have there, make that go more straight instead of come down into the private drive and accommodate more parking that way. I mean, it would take away from your parking lot, but is that something that's doable, foreseeable?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, as we had noted before, we have been working on the overall site plan here for the office buildings to the north. and to merge that with the multifamily. We feel like we do have that balance for the parking. I do not have an approval from our partners about, moving parking to the north and moving that road to the north. Again, we too are aware of the parking issue. I don't think I have come to any meetings thus far on multifamily where it has not been raised. Like I said, the deficit that we feel like we have here is related to the amenities. And that, again, that kind of caught us off guard because it has not been a requirement or it's not been calculated before on our projects. And so if it's a hard and fast rule and we can't move that road to the north, and the city doesn't accept the guest parking along the road, then there would, unfortunately, we would remove some units, which we don't want to do. But I think that's the only way that we would be able to accommodate that. And I don't feel like that's our best option. I will tell you that we did talk with staff, and it's kind of, maybe I can zoom in here a little bit. There are some opportunities on site. If you can see that there's areas against the clubhouse, amenity areas, there's some green space. We also have some other green space we could adjust. We did talk with staff about putting parallel parking in here. And that would qualify as on site. But the concern, and so I'm a little, caught off guard by this because this was a late request. The concern was, well, this is a drive aisle here internally and you have cars backing up and there might be some conflicts internally. So we landed with staff a few weeks ago about bringing that parking, the additional parking needed up here. So we felt like this was the best option by cleaning up the drive aisles. We could do it. We could, shorten up or narrow up some landscaping and make some adjustments and parallel along here and meet the requirement on site. But felt like the flow of traffic through here and around that community center was better if we didn't do that. So that's an option for us as well. We'd have to work through that through the CZC process.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the recognition of the parking issues that we do have, and it's probably continue. So, I mean, more is always better for parking.
I still want to acknowledge that when we looked at this, the parking requirements for the units, I mean, we do meet those. The deficit is, in our opinion, is related to the amenities. And it was even brought up was, well, what happens if somebody's having an event there at the community center and they're bringing guests in? So, I mean, that was kind of the feeling of how do we accommodate that? Staff has taken time on this issue. They've made some modifications as unit types have changed and how do we accommodate the correct amount of parking? I think that's also a topic that's on the planning staff's upcoming UDC amendments. That was one of the bullet items to look at that again. I think, it's a topic to continue to discuss and address so that we can all be good neighbors and come up with a provision that does work.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
So has there been a thought of doing an easement to the parking lot to the north? Because I'm assuming that most of the time when you need more parking is going to be off hours. And, potentially residents could potentially park in the evening or on the weekends when they have events and share some parking that way as an option. And more than likely, that's what's probably going to end up happening anyways, if they can't find parking for the subdivision or for the apartments.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Yearsley, we haven't discussed specifically that easement. I do think that you are correct that naturally overflow parking in those off hours, because when people leave the offices, those lots empty, and apartments and residences, they come home at night and weekends, and there's usually not a conflict there. We can discuss that. I don't know. I don't know that answer, but it's something we can discuss.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Grove?
John, real quick, the 671 that you have here is that including, was that 20? That's on the private drive?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grove, it is. I had a previous version that showed the calculation, but my formatting got messed up there. But it is, we have 651 plus the 20.
I'm just curious because in the staff report, we have a whole bunch of numbers. And so I'm just trying to
Yeah.
wrap my head around where they're at. So.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grove, staff there were some discrepancies in our report about, how many stalls we actually did have. There was a little bit of confusion on our part as well, but we did go back through and calculate it again. So 651 on site plus the additional 20.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Chris, do we have anybody signed up or,
No.
oh,
Yeah, Madam Chair, nobody signed up online. You might be
okay,
receiving a paper right now.
yep. Okay, first on the list that wishes to testify is Alicia Eastman. You could pull the mic real close to you.
Because I'm so short. I live at 1485 Rolling Hill.
And please state your name as well.
My name's Alicia Eastman, and my house is on Lot 3, Block 2. So my biggest concern right now is that, and well, I appreciate everything that the developer's trying to do, that if you go with that second option to do the improvement to widen the road there at the end where we're at, we're just where View Circle is, between View Circle and Overland. So if you do that, take that easement and that 24 feet, it's going to affect not just my well, guy across the street, 3, 4, 5 houses, plus mine. And so what do we do for water? And if we don't want to annex or, and hook up to city sewer, city water, what happens to our wells? I mean, I'm not clear on that. And I need water. So that's really what my big concern is. And then I have the neighbor on Lorraine Bethelson that lives on View Circle. She doesn't have internet. She doesn't use email. She doesn't do electronic things. And so I had, gotten a copy of the ACHD report and took it over to her. And she said, well, are all the houses going to be gone? What if somebody doesn't want to move? And I said, well, I don't know. And so she said, well, are they just going to do eminent domain or something? And I said, I don't know, but here, I call Meridian, call the city clerk and, take it up with the city council. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let the applicant respond. That's all that has indicated on the sign-up list that they wish to testify. That being said, is there anybody else in the room or online that wishes to testify that did not sign up? Okay, come forward.
Madam Chair, you do have one person.
Okay, we have somebody in the room first.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yep,
I'll get to this
We'll go
person.
to Zoom in a minute. Thanks.
My name is Mike Blowers and I live at 1325 Rolling Hill. My question is in regards just to the cul-de-sac option. I didn't really plan on having questions until that came up, but I guess first question is I'm unaware of a property that Brighton owns or BVA owns. But I believe where you pointed to on the map would be my next door neighbor, which would leave 2 homes past the cul-de-sac. So I'm curious how that would work. The other option, which was purchasing part of the property at the very end of the street, I do know that would be an option for that person, but if that doesn't go through, this cul-de-sac would go into the private drive of the plans that were shown above, so I guess I'm just looking for clarification. What if neither one of those properties are able to be used for the cul-de-sac? Where does that leave us? But since I'm already up here, the other question that I was curious about, I haven't been able to get an answer to, was kind of like the last meeting, we were waiting on a report from ACHD. We were told, no concerns around it. Well, the report comes back and it says we need to, remove the homes on Rolling Hill. And now we're being told that again, oh, there's a report that's going to come out and it will likely work. And I hope it does work, but I'm just curious, what if this report comes back and it says, well, you can't run all the traffic down Silverstone, or maybe I misunderstood and it will work. So I was seeking clarification there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, I think we're clear in the room. Do we have somebody online?
We do, and I'm going to unmute you now. It's Chris Mayalka. Apologies if I mispronounced. You're able to speak now.
Thank you, Madam Chair and City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your full name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Chris Mayalka, and I live at 4160 East View Circle. I just wanted to say just a couple of things. We have several members in our neighborhood unable to make it because of COVID, so we haven't lost interest in this project. We're just sick and quarantining. The other thing I did want to mention, we've had a couple of Zoom meetings with the Highway Department, and they've shown us how they've gotten some of their numbers for Rolling Hill. And I believe it was 6.3 car trips per unit. And we did the math, and it just seemed like all the parties on the call agreed that their numbers just weren't realistic and they were very low. So it seems like, and my notes tell me that they were estimating 200 trips a day up Rolling Hill currently, which seems very high. And we're estimating, with the numbers they gave us, trips per cars per day about 2,500. So our concern is that if just with phase 1 and 2, the numbers of cars would far exceed the whatever you want to use, the legal limit for Rolling Hills. And we're just afraid that retroactively there's nothing that we can do about that. Having said that, we are certainly appreciative of Brighton and BVA for whatever their motives are. It does seem like all parties really want to avoid using Rolling Hills as a thorough way for this project. And I really do appreciate something a council member said. I forget who it was at last meeting, something to the effect, we haven't always done right by some of these rural properties, and here's our chance to get it right. And the one last thing that I remember a council member said, and I really think they nailed it, this project was really done backwards. The property should have been attempted to have been purchased at Overland and then move up the road. And unfortunately, that wasn't what happened. But I do give Brighton and BVA the credit for recognizing that, and for whatever the motives are, trying to do the right thing now. So thank you, council. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room or online? Sure, come forward.
My name is Amy Waddles. My address is 1360 Rolling Hill Drive. I just wanted to add, I was listening via phone at the beginning of the meeting. One part that stood out to me is you guys are faced with two decisions, option one, not you or using Silverstone. Option two that's still on the table is Rolling Hill Drive. I don't want to gloss over what ACHD had to say about option two with Rolling Hill Drive. What will happen at the intersection of Rolling Hill and Overland is it becomes a right turn in only and right turn out only. So now the residents, we're having to backtrack all the way through Silverstone, just to be able to get back out to the left. It's a concern. You know, it's not something I think any of our neighbors want to lose sight of, is that the Rolling Hill piece is still on the table. Last time we met, there were a lot of concerns and we brought them forward. And thankfully, you know, you guys were willing to wait for the report. There was discussion about waiting later in January for the ACHD report, but it got pushed to the 6th. Here we are again without the report, trying to push it earlier. I'm just asking, can we table this again until the report comes out? I know I've reached out to planning and zoning and haven't been able to get phone calls returned prior to meetings. We have met with ACHD and they've been wonderful. The last piece I heard from ACHD was there were still parking concerns. So I just don't, it just feels, can we please reserve this for when the report is done? Anything at this point is just trusting that whatever figures or whatever stats they're proposing are accurate. And I feel like the consequences are too big for the residents there to take that leap of faith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question for the
Oh,
ma'am.
Amy? Yeah, he has a question for you. Commissioner
Question,
Steele?
do you know if they're going to have a hearing on this, ACHD?
They said no. I think, Mike, you know better. There was a process.
We can't have the discussion in the room because it doesn't get
Sorry.
picked up on record. Sorry.
No.
I was going to say, if the answer is no without a request, I would definitely request one. For sure, because, I mean, as the city, we're a little bit tied at this point because we don't own the roads and we're kind of a little bit in the middle here.
Right.
So, I mean, if the concern really lies with the road and what they're going to do with that and the decision that's going to be made, then definitely request a hearing with ACHD so your voice can be heard.
That decision would be predicated on you approving option B first, though, so we could avoid that whole scenario and just wait for the report.
We don't approve option B or A.
Yeah, it's,
ACHD does. It's completely out of our purview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, as far as what they're proposing, that's the part I'm confused about.
yeah, the option A and option B is, option A is what everybody wants to move forward with, but option B is there in case the traffic study comes back and Silverstone is not adequate.
Right, but in order for option B to move forward, you all would have to approve that. Or whatever you're deciding tonight would decide option A or B, either are fair game,
Either would be fair game.
and that's troublesome. That's all.
Yeah, it would, that's why the options were both presented because the traffic study isn't done right now. So it's, this is what happens if the traffic study is okay. And this is what happens if the traffic study does not support Silverstone only.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, you do have one more person online.
Okay, thank you.
It's Pam Haynes, and Pam, you are unmuted now. Or you can unmute yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Pam Haynes. I live at 1235 Rolling Hill Drive. I just have a comment. It's more for the developer. I realize it's purely speculation at this point, but to me, a third option for the cul-de-sac could be that it is placed on the northern line where it would be on their property instead of purchasing land from the landowner to the east. I'm just wondering if that is something that could be put on the table as an option. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else online or in the room that wishes to testify? Okay, would the applicant like to come back?
Madam Chair, for the record, again, John Wardle with Brighton. As it relates to the project and to transportation, one thing that was really everybody, it was very clear from our last meeting, was how do we not use Rolling Hill? Rolling Hill is a public road. There's no disputing that, but Rolling Hill does have a unique characteristic at this point in time, given the residences that are there. Can we predict when those changes will happen to that? No, but we feel like we came up, we felt like we wanted to go back and check with both the fire department and with ACHD on whether we could pursue emergency access only. I understand that, there's still this element that's hanging out there regarding, ACHD being able to review that traffic that would come off of Rolling Hill and move to Silverstone. My expectation is that that is the solution. Do we want to be in a adversarial position with our neighbors to the south through this project while residents are still there? No. We're really trying to come up with a solution. Regarding the location of those turnarounds, yes, there would be a third option, which would be go to the north. One of the problems about going to the north, which we could pursue or look at as an option, we won't take it off the table, but there is circulation that would take all those trips over. So if we bring that cul-de-sac up, that lower road to the south of the property would be cut off. There wouldn't be a way to work around that. So while not preferable, it's something that we could look at. The project is amenity rich. We have a lot of things here on site. We have an oversized amenity center. I know we're talking about 11 parking stalls. It's 7,000 square feet. That's where the deficit is. We really could reduce the size of that community center to something that would be more you see in the market of 3,000 square feet. But we feel like the amenities that are being offered here substantiate the need for those. Would we cut them out? I don't think we want to, but that's what we're talking about here, is the added parking stalls are based on a fitness facility and amenities that we're providing. I hear the comment loud and clear regarding parking. I think one of the benefits here, one of the things that I hope that we do discuss in upcoming UDC group is there are different parking loading needs when you get into 3-bedroom apartments. They often have a number of adults that are living there. And so I don't know that it's just specifically can be addressed based on the units themselves, but I think you also need to look at the mix within an entire project, because that I know comes up quite a bit. With our partners, we have worked on this quite a bit. We feel like we've come up with a solution. We feel like there are options and alternatives that Rolling Hill, like we mentioned, which is in the ACHD staff report, option 2, about using Rolling Hill to the south. While not preferable, and as noted, there would be some restrictions as well. We originally came in looking at this as a public road and trying to use that public road. I think we need to have additional conversations as those areas will transition on what that means. And when they do transition, how the connection should be made up to our property. That is a conversation that should be had at some point in the future, because these properties will convert. They'll sell one by one over time. And I think that's just something that ACHD and the city of Meridian need to look at long term. With that said, we feel like option 1, which is that turnaround that would stop the traffic. So that traffic on Rolling Hill is resident traffic of those themselves and their guests, and we would limit it to emergency access only. Again, we feel like this does provide a place for housing in a location where there will be offices that residents that potentially work there could also live there. And we feel like this is the right place for this, given the regional mixed use designation and the uses that are already proposed and will be proposed at Eagle View Landing and surrounding. We do ask for your approval of the project. We know that there's still this thing hanging out there. But with that approval, we also, like I mentioned earlier, request that the commission strongly encourage ACHD to accept option 1 and Silverstone be the place where the traffic could go. I think that would be a helpful piece of information that they could receive as well. And I stand for any questions you might have.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
just one of the folks that came up had a question about the wells and if we're going to go with option B and how those would be handled.
Madam Chair, I appreciate you, Commissioner Sill, bringing that back up. If option 2 is pursued, the requirement is that it would be, we would need to add sidewalk and streetlights to one side of the road. Clearly, we would have to look at that. But if there is an impact to a water source, that would need to be provided and fixed prior to any of that work happening. Honestly, we haven't pursued any design for option 2. We don't want to pursue that, but if that was where we had to go, we would have to make sure that people have their services, including their wells.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Grove.
John, what is the timeline for the study that is forthcoming?
Pardon me, Madam Chair, Commissioner Grove, it's in process. You know, our consultant who did the overall traffic study, and I just want to be clear that ACHD has reviewed the overall traffic counts. They've accepted what the volume of traffic will be coming out of the project. So at this point, they're just asking our consultant to make that connection and go over and show what it would be. I would expect that that should be able to be transmitted to ACHE very soon. We're not talking months here. We're talking just a matter of, you know, at most weeks, if not sooner. But you know, ACHD will still need to review that and work it through their team to look at the numbers.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this time, could we get a motion to close the public hearing for H 2021-0075?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H 2021-0075. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
I actually applaud Brighton for what they've done and looking at to try to help minimize the impact to the homeowners on Rolling Hills. I understand that it's not a done deal, but I think realistically, I think even ACHD is going to try to push as hard as they can to make Rolling Hills an emergency access only. Just because I think everyone understands that that makes sense. So I'm comfortable with that moving forward. With regard to parking, I'm one to always want more parking, but given the location of this and the amount of parking to the north, I'm okay with the way they've got the parking proposed. Because ultimately the overflow parking is going to go to the north, even if there isn't an easement. And so there's parking available that's not in homeowners, especially if Rolling Hills becomes emergency access only. So to me, it's one area that I'm not as concerned about. So as according to the applicant as well, their traffic engineer has actually done the analysis. My guess is they're just finishing up the report, and they're saying that the making the access to Rolling Hills emergency only is more of a formality. And again, this has to go to city council as well. So there is one more gatekeeper before us. So with that, I am comfortable moving this one forward.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Yeah. There seems to be just two major issues here, and the parking, if it's truly about the square footage of the amenities, the clubhouse, that's all going to be used strictly by the tenants of the apartment. So I don't, and I agree with Commissioner Yearsley. I think any, if it's guest parking or whatever, will probably flow to the north. So I'm okay with that. It's not, this isn't a development that's on surrounded by residential areas where the parking is going to overflow into neighborhoods, so much as many others do. So that's my issue there. Or I'm not concerned about that, unless somebody sees differently. Personally, I'm looking back at the minutes from December 2nd, and we continued this to wait for ACHC's report. We don't have that yet. That was one of the big reasons. Although Commissioner usually did make the point that still got to go to council. I wish we would have had that, for this meeting. We don't. I would like to know for certain before I would vote to approve that really the only option is option one. I don't want to send it to council with both, depending on, and leaving that in ACHD's hands. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Grove.
I agree. We wanted to wait for the ACHD report, but we did get the ACHD report. Now we're waiting for the confirmation of the applicant's study and not the ACHD report. So in that regard, I feel comfortable moving forward. I would say in any condition of approval, though, that study needs to be finalized and reviewed by ACHD prior to being heard by city council as a condition, because that would inform how council can make a decision or not. I mean, if the study does come back and option 2 is the only option, council's going to have to weigh in on that anyway, because it has an enormous impact. But I would feel comfortable moving it forward as with that condition that the study has to be complete and reviewed by ACHD prior to city council. Everything else I'm pretty comfortable with. I would always like to see more parking, but I don't have huge concerns with it as presented. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with the parking. I mean, and whether the numbers and the requirements include the amenity, I mean, it's always included there's always been a calculation in there for the amenity. I'm not on staff, but even I remember lots of presentations where that calculation is included, because people naturally bring guests over, and it is, I mean, some people live far enough away that they don't want to haul their stuff down there and they drive down there. So, but yeah, in this particular location, I agree with having that huge parking lot that's going to be just on the north side of that road. It's much different than it butting up against another residential area or something that is already parking stressed. And I hate to see him take away from green open space to fit more in when there's going to be a huge parking lot there. As long as they don't end up putting signs up for towing that says you can't park here. So I would encourage some cross access there, I guess. And I would agree with Commissioner Grove that before this goes to council, I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I'm not sure how long this takes and how accurate and how big of a percentage they feel that what they're thinking is going to actually pan out. But from what I'm hearing here tonight, I think it's well over 50-50 that it's going to be a go for option A. But on the other hand, I wouldn't want to lock that down, not knowing. So I would tend to agree and support Commissioner Grove's idea that that all be wrapped up before it's heard by council. So they know for sure what they're dealing with, and then if it needs more, then they can remand it back or have further discussions there on our, instead of us twiddling our thumbs and wondering.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Seal.
Yeah, I agree that I'm comfortable moving it forward as far as the use or not using Rolling Hill Drive. But I do think that final report from ACHD does need to be finalized so that the answer to that is known. I mean, as far as the applicant, I think they've done everything in their power to go through and make sure that it is known that option A is the option that they want to go towards. I think that works well for everybody involved. I do agree that if there's a way for the city to converse with ACHD about this, that we should definitely let them know that that's the option that everybody would like to go towards. As much as I don't like option B, I'm still okay with moving it forward. I mean, unfortunately, we don't own the roads. So ACHD does. Again, I would recommend very highly that you ask for a hearing from ACHD so your voice is known there, because really the decision is in their hands, not ours. As far as the parking, I do agree that people are going to go into that parking lot. That's where people are going to end up. So for this one specifically, it's not that big of an issue. However, it does set a precedence. And we've been here when the applicant has used precedents in order to tell us what they've been able to do or not do in the past. So when we're splitting hairs on it, this is a way, to me, that a precedent has been set that could be taken advantage of. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think there's other ways to solve the parking issue. They're not inexpensive, but they are solutions. So, and they will fit into code, and then it satisfies everything without really taking away anything. So I'm a little on the fence about that one. Like I said, I'd rather it all fit into the code and be by the book and be done the right way so that there is no precedent set that anybody can take advantage of in the future. Because people will do that for sure. That's about all I got on it. Madam Chair.
May I clarify a couple things? In regard to the parking, the applicant did clarify that their parking calcs were a little bit off. So to my calculations, I think we're only 5 short, somewhere in that number right now. If the commission is leaning towards allowing, or they're okay with the applicant not providing the minimum standards of on-site parking, there are alternatives in our city code to off-site parking through a shared use agreement. There are standards for that the applicant do have to comply with. So it's not just a given. And if that isn't an option, then if the minimum standards aren't being complied with on the site, alternative compliance is another option, but we do have to go through those processes to approve the change, so.
Madam Chair, just for further reference on that, if we make a motion, they have to meet the requirement or provide alternative compliance for parking. Is that not my understanding?
Yes, There is a condition in the staff report right now that they provide the minimum parking spaces. If they go through the alternative parking standard alternatives in 11.3C7, they can still comply with that condition. There's no need to amend it necessarily.
Okay.
Or they can apply for alternative compliance.
Okay.
But you can't, I guess my point is you can't just waive the minimum parking standards.
Madam Chair. So on Sonia, on that would in conditioning for a shared use agreement, is that what has kind of been talked about up here? Is using the office parking to the north to incorporate that as a shared use agreement? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it is a possibility. I would want to know what the parking calcs are and what's required and what's provided on that site. When there's more detail on that, I'm not sure if they're to that point yet. Also, as a provision of approving the parking alternatives, typically you want uses that aren't sharing the parking at the same time. With residential, that's a little more difficult because the residents could be there at any time, at the same time as the office employees. So I guess for approving an alternative, I'd want to know exactly how much they are over and what their need is for the future office uses. Having said that, they're only 5 spaces short, so I don't think it's a big deal. But those are our things that we would consider in that.
So I understand that we don't need to make a comment on that because it's in the staff report that they meet the minimum requirements. We can't waive the minimum requirements. And so they just either need to show that they meet those requirements or provide the alternative compliance. So at that point, we don't need to address that in the motion. Okay.
Somebody like, do we need more discussion or would somebody like to take a stab at a well-crafted motion?
Madam Chair, I will take a stab at this. Let me, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to City Council of file number H 2021-0075 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 6, 2022, with the following modifications: to include a new condition requiring construction traffic to access the site from West Silverstone, or from Silverstone rather than from Rolling Hills Drive, as committed by the applicant in the last hearing. Modification to condition number A1.G pertaining to ACHD's required offsite improvements to Rolling Hills Drive to simply require compliance with ACH requirements. Then also that prior to City Council, that the applicant has worked with ACHD to get the revised staff report back to how Rolling Hills Drive will be improved or will be emergency access. And then also that staffs are planning this recommendation to go with option 1 for the emergency access only as a recommendation to ACHD.
Do we also need the easement to the north property?
As the applicant stated, he's there in a purchase agreement, so I don't know if we
But-
can still provide that easement.
I think it needs to be added to the DA.
Okay.
Yeah.
That the applicant's access needs to provide access easement to the out parcel in the DA agreement, or
By the purchase agreement,
probably provide the purchase agreement
the DA.
in the DA.
Second.
Madam Chair, may I
Oh.
clarify the motion, please?
Certainly.
Was the motion to, as Commissioner Grove suggested earlier, for the study to be complete and reviewed by ACHD before this goes to council?
Yes.
So this could be a while, so clerk may not want to set it, I guess. We aren't setting a date for it.
Yeah, I think the applicant has suggested it might be for not months, but weeks. So I think that's, yeah. It has been moved and seconded to recommend approval on H-2021-0075 with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Chris, do you need a roll call or did you get that?
I just need the nay.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Thank you.
Then motion approved. Okay. Next on the agenda is H-2021-0092, 1160 West Ustick Annexation, and we'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll let anybody who's leaving just clear out for a couple of seconds. Okay, thank you. As noted, the next application before you tonight is for 1160 West Ustick. The site consists of 3.81 acres of land currently zoned RUT in the county. And per the application name, it is located at 1160 West Ustick. It's near the quarter mile, or I should say, but yeah, a quarter mile and half mile mark on Ustick, on the north side of Ustick, west of Venable, east of Linder. The applications before you tonight are annexation and zoning only. You are recommending body on that of 4.54 acres of land with a request for the R15 zoning district for the future purpose of constructing an affordable housing multifamily residential project by the housing company. So the discrepancy in the property size of 3.8 and 4.5 is because of the right of way. Right of way has to go to the center line of the road, so you have that extra area. So again, the property is 3.8 acres. West Ustick Road abuts the site along the entire southern boundary, and it is a relatively odd-shaped parcel. It is widest at its west boundary and smallest at its east boundary, approximately 390 feet for the west and 90 feet on the east. There are no public streets currently abutting the site except for approximately 11 feet of right-of-way at the very northwest corner of the site. At the northeast corner of the site, there's a relatively large residential lot. I'll go back to the maps. That's a lot, and then you have just a corner of right-of-way there. The residential lot in the northeast is 3335 North Cooper Lane. It was annexed and zoned as part of the Woodburn subdivision that is directly north. It does not take access through that subdivision, but does have a stub road to their north property boundary. Instead, this property takes access via a private road easement through the subject site out to Ustick. Between this parcel and the Woodburn subdivision and runs along almost the entire northern property boundary is a common lot owned by the Woodburn HOA, and it contains a irrigation facility, the Limp Canal, and is piped. It does not appear that this area is currently fenced off from this parcel. The majority of the adjacent parcels are single-family residential with the exception of the CC property directly to the east, which again, they only share about 90 feet of frontage width or shared boundary. That property, Settlers Square, recently received development agreement modification approval to include multifamily townhomes on the north half of their site while keeping commercial pad sites along Ustick. Cross access was required of Settlers Square, and staff is requiring this cross access be reciprocated. And the applicant does agree with this. In general, the property is a relatively odd-shaped parcel with its own set of challenges derived from previous planning decisions, its dimensions, and its general location. As noted, well, I guess I didn't note it, but the subject site does contain 2 future land use designations: mixed-use community and medium-density residential. Mixed-use community is the brown, the yellow is the medium density. Staff finds the proposed use to be in alignment with the anticipated uses in both designations. Furthermore, future land use designations are not always parcel specific when more than one exists on the same project area. In short, the city has allowed applicants to utilize one or both of the designations for their project. However, in order for the proposed 52 affordable multifamily units to meet the gross density requirements, the project must be analyzed against the mixed-use community designation because it allows dwellings at a gross density of 6 to 15 units per acre. To note, the proposed use for this is multifamily, so it will require a future conditional use permit in the requested R15 zoning district and will be subject to specific use standards in the UDC. The subject mixed-use community area is located around a mid-mile corridor and has minimal commercial uses currently developed. Previous applications in the area have allowed a reduction in commercial areas due to the viability of commercial being, lost my place. Due to the viability of commercial being lower in these mid-mile locations than on the arterial intersections like Linder and Ustick or Meridian and Ustick. Staff does anticipate that most of the remaining unannexed land to the east that is part of this mixed-use community bubble will be commercial because they directly abut Ustick Road, which the unannexed parcels are these ones here. And I believe one right here. In addition, as seen on the future land use map, the area to the north of the subject parcel was specifically carved out of this MUC bubble to allow for more traditional residential uses. This choice, coupled with the existing Stub Street locations and the larger annexed but not redeveloped parcels, one to the west and one to the northeast, they have created a site that cannot viably meet the fundamental goals and policies outlined in the comp plan for the previously envisioned mixed-use designation. Minimal opportunities exist for shared spaces with other MUC parcels to the east, and even cross-access to the CC parcel is only attainable through 90 feet of shared property line. Because of these constraints to the site and nearby area, staff does not find it feasible for the applicant to meet all of the mixed-use policies, provide additional commercial area, and should instead be an affordable multifamily housing project. Again, the proposed use is multifamily residential, but affordable housing. The applicant is proposing this project with a couple of notable differences from traditional multifamily seen elsewhere in the city of Meridian. First, the submitted concept plan and elevations show sixplexes and eightplexes that are no more than 2-story in height. They're accessed from one side of the building and look similar to a townhome instead of a garden-style apartment. Secondly, the applicant proposes this multifamily project to be affordable housing in the form of deed restricted rents for the entire site. Staff finds that the specific use of affordable housing, no matter the type, is a greatly needed use within the city and is in itself its own residential use. Staff has worked with the city attorney's office to propose adequate development agreement provisions to ensure that the proposed use of affordable housing is maintained on site. Outside of the proposed use, the concept plan itself should be analyzed against the comprehensive plan. The submitted concept plan depicts 6 sixplex units and 2 eightplex units. The eightplex units are along Usick. The rest of the buildings are sixplex buildings. They, again, are all 2-story in height. The site is shown with a looping drive aisle due to its relative odd shape of being wider at the west end. And the drive aisle has parking on both sides with the clubhouse and playground area in the center of the project for pretty equal access by all future residents. At least 3 of the homes closest to the subject site in the Woodburn subdivision on the north are 2-story in height. I believe there's 5 properties that abut it. 3 of those 5 are 2 stories, either 2 or single story, but they do have the common lot of the Lemp Canal between them. So there's a pretty far physical separation between their back fence and the proposed project. In addition, the applicant is showing open space directly adjacent to the single family home in the northeast that takes access via the private drive. Along the west boundary, the applicant is showing a 15-foot buffer that would be adjacent to a future road extension, Northwest 11th, for majority of this shared property line. The existing single-family home on this adjacent property, the one to the west, is located on the west side of their lot and is approximately 100 feet from the shared property line, so about overall 115 from the proposed buildings. Therefore, staff finds that the applicant has provided appropriate building massing, open space locations, and buffer widths, and appropriate transition of the residential use and density to the adjacent residential uses. I would like to jump forward a little bit just to see the future right-of-way. As noted, there's a small area of existing right-of-way in the northwest corner of this site, northwest corner of the site, and it is for Northwest 11th Avenue. As you can tell, there's a very small area that abuts the property. Obviously, extending it into this site wouldn't make the most sense because of the existing right-of-way and the potential of issues with the adjacent property owner. It is anticipated that this road would be extended wholly on the property to the west. except for this sliver of right of way, which is this exhibit that ACHD provided and the applicant has been, has agreed to with ACHD as well. The property to the west has an additional public street stub to their west boundary from Tether Row Crossing that is currently under development. Code does call for cross access between parcels, but because of the proposed development and the site constraints, staff does not find it necessary to require a stub to the west boundary for future connectivity. Further, staff finds if a connection were to be required, it would promote cross access through the drive aisle that is meant to serve future residents of this site and would essentially create a thoroughfare for residential traffic through the drive aisle rather than through a public road. Commission and council should determine if cross access to the west is in fact needed in spite of these factors. There is one existing structure on the property that appears to be some kind of concrete structure. I don't have any pictures of it, but it will be removed upon the project development. In addition, there is existing 5-foot wide detached sidewalk along Eustic Road that will be protected and maintained during construction. Any driveway curb cuts will also be closed in lieu of the proposed access. Initial review of the conceptual elevations depicts a 6-plex building with varying roof profiles and varying materials, including stone, fiber cement, lap siding, and board and batten in different layouts. The elevations also depict the tallest portion of the buildings to face inwards towards the site and helps with building massing facing both Eustic as well as the adjacent residential properties. Access is proposed to West Eustic, which is an arterial road via construction of a new local street segment. And this is a very short segment. It aligns with North Blairmore on the south side of West Eustic Road, which is why ACHD wants it here. It extends from Eustic and then terminates at the north boundary for a total length of only about 100 linear feet. Access to the multifamily is clearly off of this local road in the form of a driveway connection for the drive aisle. All parking and access to the proposed units are off of this drive aisle that loops through the site. As with other projects, when there's a private easement that is shared on a property, that is a point of discussion. In my staff report, I went into more detail, but in general, the actual location does not depict it here, which is where it is. It actually is along these boundaries. So all they're gonna do is just maintain the existing easement, shift a portion of it in a, on a private matter, and actually pave portion of their dirt driveway for the existing residents. My understanding that this applicant and that resident have had multiple discussions and they're perfectly fine with the proposed layout for their private drive. In addition, there is a 5-foot wide detached sidewalk along Eustic, as noted. The applicant is proposing attached sidewalks and other micropaths throughout the site as seen on here with the light gray, both to the northwest, southwest, and then along the east boundary to the future cross access to the Settler Square parcel for access to the future commercial uses. Sorry, I'm skipping around. In addition to the proposed sidewalks and micropaths shown on the concept plan, staff did recommend an additional pathway behind the buildings and along the north boundary to help activate the already existing open space from the Woodburn subdivision. That is the area of the piped limp canal that is behind 5 or 6 existing homes over there. That area is not improved, but it is open. And so staff does believe that a gravel pathway suitable for at least walking should meander through this area on this site so that this open space area is not walled off any more than it already has been from the Woodburn subdivision. The applicant has not agreed with this provision. Staff does feel like it would be an added amenity for this area, not just for this area, this project, but also the Woodburn subdivision. It would allow them to have easier access from their subdivision down to Eustic and or to the east. The applicant is in agreement with all other DA provisions except, so again, the pathway is A1.I and A1.B is regarding the affordable housing component. And there's some legalese type of information in that DA provision, and there's no need to go into too much detail at the hearing in that, but staff anticipates continuing to work with the applicant to make sure we have a shared language that we're all in agreement with as we move forward, but still allows the city to maintain that the future use will be affordable and not market rate apartments. With that, staff does recommend approval of the subject annexation for an affordable housing project. And after that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward?
I believe she's online.
Oh,
Yes, hi. Let me get set up here. Hello, greetings. I'm Erin Anderson. I live at 2238 North of Stairway in Meridian, and I am with the housing company and the applicant. We have a presentation that I'm not sure is automatically going to be loaded or if I should load it.
You can share your screen, Erin, if you'd like.
Okay. Okay. Again, I'd like to thank you for your time, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is a really exciting opportunity for us. As I mentioned, I do live in Meridian, but I don't think that the city of Meridian is familiar with the housing company. And since Mr. Dodson did such a thorough job of describing the nuts and bolts, really from a planning and design standpoint of our project, I'm going to do a little bit of background on our company and also a little bit more information about affordable housing, because there seems to be a lot of interest in learning more about what we mean by that. So the housing company is a nonprofit organization that started in 1990 with the mission to address the concern of an inadequate supply of affordable, decent rental housing within the state of Idaho. And recently, we're also developing in adjacent states. We play an active role in bringing affordable housing resources to the areas of the state that are not being adequately served. Through local, public, and private partnerships, we've been able to bring creative housing solutions to areas struggling with insufficient housing. Our goal is to partner with local government and other interested parties to solve local housing needs. We've developed more than 800 units in 2 dozen affordable rental communities. The housing company provides professional on-site property management services for our affordable apartment communities, serving low-income families, seniors, and the disabled. We own our properties in the long term and take pride in building an asset for the community that will stand the test of time. We're able to put together complex financing in order to make these housing communities a reality. Our nearest developments to the subject property are Moon Valley Apartments in Star, Nampa Duplexes in Hazel Park in Caldwell. We also have Canyon Terrace in Nampa and Sunset Landing in Caldwell, currently under construction. A common question that I receive is, what is affordable housing? What do you mean by that? And there are a number of affordable housing programs. The most common one utilized today for new construction, which is a surprise to many people, is actually an IRS program, not a HUD program. And it's called Section 42. It's the housing tax credit. It's not the same as what people think of as subsidized housing or Section 8. With this program, a private investor such as a bank or insurance company will actually become a partner in the project and provide equity to the project in return for 10 years worth of federal tax credits. And with that equity, we're able to keep the rents lower in perpetuity. Residents must be income and program eligible. Rent that a Section 42 resident pays is based on a fixed rental fee for the unit size that is lower than the average market rent in the area. So it doesn't adjust with their income if their income goes up or down. They initially qualify, and then once Once they initially qualify, they're set with that fixed rent. It is difficult to identify which rental properties participate in the Section 42 program because they look like just any other apartment building. We require income verifications, criminal background checks, credit checks, student status verifications, and household composition verification. A common myth is that people who live in affordable housing won't fit in my neighborhood. But the fact is that people who need affordable housing already live and work in your community. In Meridian, the average 2-bedroom rent costs $1,814 according to rents.com. This is a staggering 43% increase from last year. The rent affordable at the median renter income, however, is around $1,000. So there's a very significant gap. Access to safe, affordable homes builds a strong foundation for families and communities. And even hardworking Idahoans often lack good housing options. This is a chart that kind of just shows a potential resident profile, a few different scenarios, ranging from a single person in a customer service job who needs a 1-bedroom apartment at $741 to a single mother with 2 children that's a cashier that needs a 2-bedroom of $946 to a 4-person household that needs a 3-bedroom at $1,089 that might work in the food service industry. These are a couple images of the quality level that I'm talking about when I say that people are surprised that it's affordable housing. This is the Springs Apartments in McCall, Idaho. And then this is a collage of photos of Moon Valley Apartments in Star. And this is the elevations that were provided, and the overall design concept is based on this design, and we're working with the same architect on this project that we did with Moon Valley. Mr. Dodson did a great job of going over a lot of the details as to the flow of the site and connectivity. But I think I just want to make it clear that with our neighborhood meeting and the comments that were received, I think it was, I just want to stress the importance that we wanted this to really be a moderate, not a high density development. We want to keep it to 2-story buildings for 2 reasons. One, to fit in with the neighborhood, and as well as really for fire access reasons, 2 stories is much preferred. We provided the pedestrian connections along all corners of the site. And we worked with, in initially looking at the site, we knew that one of the most unique challenges of this site is that there is a single family residence with access through the site. The good news is that their existing easement does run where our proposed Cooper Lane is. In reviewing our title work, we were pleasantly surprised to find that out. So, so essentially, we're just moving it to where it was recorded 10 years ago. And so the site really, it does have, it's an infill development. There are so many positive things about infill developments because of the connectivity to the neighborhood, the access to Settlers Park, the fact that it's a walkable community. But of course, it's not ideal in terms of it's infill, so we don't have the option to do everything on all sides of the property that would be in an ideal planning situation. And so what we've done is the very best we can with all the comments that between ACHD, and the fire department and city staff that we can do to make this a functional and comfortable housing community of 52 units that fits in with the neighborhood context. And I think Mr. Dotson also went over kind of this importance of the exterior design appeal, or the building height with various height fenestrations for interest and quality finishes. Our overall timeline involves this first step of zoning and annexation, which is required before we can even apply for any funding for the project. We also are going to be required to submit a CUP and certificate of zoning appropriateness. And I would anticipate that would run us through February and March. And then we'll have a variety of funding applications between January and August, depending on the final determination of sources available for this project. We plan on submitting a building permit application sometime this summer, and then closing on financing and construction start between July and October of this year, hopefully. If not, then it might move into spring of next year, depending on funding availability. This really is the first step in the entitlement process. I think we've, these details about the affordable housing and the rent structuring typically don't come up this early, but we're really excited to be able to share what we do. Very passionate about it personally, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thanks.
Do you have any questions for the applicant or staff?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Aaron, thank you for all that. And it's kind of interesting to learn. You mentioned that there's on-site management. Is that, can you?
Yeah.
You.
Yep. So there would be an
24
office.
hours?
It would not be 24 hours necessarily. Sometimes we're able to have a resident manager, but I'm not sure if we'll have that in this case. If it's not 24 hours with a resident manager, there would be set office hours. The clubhouse has an office space for that manager. And then there would also be on-call emergency maintenance phone number for people to call in those situations that are after hours.
So they're there to kind of make sure that the property is maintained and
Exactly.
all that. Okay.
Exactly. We would typically have about 2 part-time jobs with this type of project, part-time property manager and a part-time maintenance person.
Madam Chair.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Steele?
Quick question on it looks, looking at your website, it looks like 2 of the 3 local developments that you have are age restricted. Would this fit into that as well, or is there going to be no age restrictions on this as far as the senior living community?
Currently, I'm envisioning this not having age restrictions, mostly because I feel like there's a huge need in all ages. And I think that we'd really benefit by having an opportunity for both seniors and younger people alike to live in this housing community. I think there's a demand for both. Frankly, it's just that I feel like there's a higher demand for non-age restricted affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner
Madam
Grove?
Chair, thanks. Aaron, could you speak to the condition that Joe mentioned with the gravel pathway and your feelings towards that?
Sure.
Condition?
I can pull up this site plan, but the main concern we have is how close that path is going to be to the building, to the residential buildings. It's, I think, 7 feet away or something is what we estimated. It's very close. So it's going to feel, especially since it's a public pathway, it's going to feel really, really close to those residential buildings. That was the first issue. The other was a cost-related item. I got an estimate of about $8,000 for that gravel pathway, which isn't terrible, but everything that we're doing, you know, is trying to whittle down gap instead of the other direction. And so that's what we're asking for your consideration. But I think the main issue that I have with it, primarily above cost, is the proximity to the building.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli?
I've got one, a couple here for staff. Joe, can you, it sounds like that you're making some, we're wanting to make some adjustments for the fact that this would, for the proposed land use, and that being the affordable housing component there. So what, can you maybe give us an idea of what differences that you're approving this under that observation versus if this were just a standard 52 unit infill project? And then also a couple other questions I have. Can you go in a little bit more detail about Cooper Lane, and is that going to go all the way into the existing subdivision? And then also, I don't know if we talked about parking in this.
Got it. Great questions, Commissioner Castellani. I'll hit the parking one first, just because it's easier, and you said it last. You can, I believe it is. Well, let me share my screen, actually. What am I doing? Here we go. They actually do have it on their site plan, which I do appreciate. It would require 100 spaces based on the unit count and the number of 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bedrooms. They are proposing 115. So that also, they did this without doing the amended code that says 1 space for every 10 units for guests. So again, that would be 105.2, but 105. So they're exceeding that. They're meeting their minimum covered parking. I imagined some of the parking issues would come up. I do see a couple spaces where they have some landscaping specifically here that they would probably fit 2 more spaces in there and maybe 1 more here, and would still be able to meet our code doesn't allow more than 12 in a row without a planter island. So they have some space to include a couple more if they need to. Again, maybe even another 1 or 2 here. I'm not overly concerned with the parking there, but that would be handled more specifically with the future CEP, which you guys would hear. But tentatively, I think they're going to be fine. Cooper Lane is, there's a stub street on the north side of that property. You can kind of see it here. And this road would line up with their property boundary. This house eventually, or this road, is going to have to meander around the house, or the house is going to have to get demolished eventually. But yeah, the reason why ACHD is, instead of just having a curb cut for a drive aisle for the multifamily, is wanting this as a local road, is so that the future extension would just go straight up to the north, and there'd be another avenue for those, and would burn to exit out to Ustick, other than just Venable. So that is, future planning for the roads there. Back to your original question. To be clear, the proposed project, I did not analyze it down to the T about the amount of open space and the parking counts and all that, again, because we're just at annexation. But my preliminary stuff is that they meet all of their dimensional standards. They're going to meet all their dimensional standards. So any discussion that I've had about affordable housing versus market rate, the 2 things that I kind of, I don't want to say relaxed on or anything, but the 2 things that I am saying that affordable housing is better than requiring them would be probably cross access along the west, and extending a public road to this site. Even if it was market rate, I don't necessarily know if I see a public benefit to that. It would just eat up so much of the site. And is it necessary when that road is also going to connect out to the west, when they have an access to Ustick there? And then the other people, and again, the only people would be using it would be Woodburn subdivision. They're going to have another one in the future to the east. Secondly, would be the overall discussion of the comprehensive plan and that mixed use community area. Again, not a major difference between looking at it affordable versus market, but I would probably be more inclined to say there needs to be some kind of commercial component if it was market rate apartments. I can definitely make the case either way. I think that there's a massive need for affordable housing, and so that outweighs the need for commercial space along Ustick. So it's a give and take with that. It's not that I'm in no way waiving anything or saying they don't have to comply with anything. They're complying with everything, in my opinion. It's just apples and oranges when it comes to meeting the comp plan in those terms.
Madam Chair, I've got a follow-up question for him on that. Can you also address 11th Avenue to the west there? So in lieu of cross access, is that will feed, is there a larger map of somewhere we can see, is 11th going to be internal, or is that going to open up to Ustick at all?
There is a connection to Ustick and Tetherow Crossing, or will be once it's fully constructed. They have a stub street to their east boundary, which is this property boundary, the west boundary of this site. So this is showing that they're going to dedicate right of way. This would continue down the shared property line here, probably head west, have a nice L of sorts in that property. You can build homes on both sides, and then that would connect out to Ustick. Yes.
Okay. So from that standpoint, there's access through the subdivision in the north and what's going on the west to
yes, sir.
Ustick. This isn't gonna, and this won't be landlocked or anything.
Correct. No.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Steele?
question for staff. So the applicant said that if they put in a 10-foot gravel path, that would make it to where it's about 7 feet away from the backside of the complex there. Is that a true statement?
But it would be 5-foot pathway, not a multi-use. So it'd just be a regular 5-foot pathway. Theoretically, if they put it right up against, yes, because they only are showing a 12-foot buffer. They technically have some physical room to shift everything south and create more space along the north boundary. I do understand that that would be in lieu of losing some of that open space. And I haven't seen a rear elevation of these, but I'm assuming there's probably some back patio space that might be technically reduced from the green space perspective if we shifted those units to the south. I don't want to fight to the death over that pathway, but I do think it would be an overall good amenity, not just for this project, but also the Woodburn subdivision in the north, to be able to have another avenue of accessing Ustick that they currently don't have because of the existing development and future connectivity to the commercial to the east. Again, they do have some physical space to make some of that work and increase that separation of 7 feet if they did it right along the north property boundary. But if commission and future council doesn't seem that that's a good idea in lieu of losing some of that green space along Ustick, then I understand that finding as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that wasn't too much of a political answer.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? We'll open up to public testimony, and I understand the sign-up sheet is not in the back. So if there's anybody in the room or online that wishes to testify on this application, please raise your hand. Okay. All right.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, real quick. I did want to note, I didn't put in my presentation. It's been a long year already. There was no written testimony as of about 6 p.m. So I just wanted to note that there was no for or against the project.
Does the applicant have any further comment?
No, other than just to point out that we did contact the Parks and Rec Department regarding that path, and they felt that the pathways that we have internally through this site provided adequate pedestrian access across the site. But again, in that grand scheme of things, that's probably a pretty minor issue. Just wanted to point that out. And just wanted to thank Mr. Dodson for his thoroughness in this and the presentation today. And I wish I could be there in person. Just wrapping up the end of my COVID quarantine.
We appreciate you staying on Zoom then.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions before we close the public hearing for H-2021-0092? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing for H-2021-0092?
Moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for H-2021-0092. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Seal.
I like everything about this, so I agree that there's a need for this, so. I like where it's at. I mean, it's kind of a little off the beaten path. I would like to see the path go in. There's a piece of land that's on Linder that abuts the school. And when they went in, we did have them do a 10-foot paved path that goes along the northern boundary of these properties. So in anticipation of connecting two properties all the way that follow that canal down into Ustick Road. So in the grand scheme of things, it would cost money to put it in, but it also costs less money to maintain it since it's essentially gravel. It doesn't have to be mowed. And it would provide for, better access, I think, for anybody that's on a bike or walking up to those schools. So would like to see that go in. I do agree with the staff report on that one. Everything else about it, I really like. I like that they limited it to 2 stories, not 3 stories. I mean, there is a need. I mean, if we're going to go 3-story or 4-story and almost be in a place like this, I'd like to see it. That said, I'm appreciative that they did go with 2-story just to blend in a little bit better. Looks like parking is adequate, amenities are adequate, and they met everything that we were asking them to do here.
Yeah, I like this project. I think going 3 and 4 stories and you start into parking issues. And I think anytime you can have this where it feels and blends in more with the community and its surroundings, the better it is. I applaud the architecture and the surroundings on that. I'm on the fence about the path. I'll give, just because it does come so close to the back of those buildings, and I hate to see them scrunch that in because I think that little bit of openness in this community will be nice. But I can see the need. I'll be with Joe and give the most political answer I can give and see both sides. But yeah, I think being 7 to 10 feet away from the back of those buildings is a little tight. But other than that, I like it. Come on.
Madam Chair.
Motions. Commissioner Grove.
I'll go ahead and make a motion unless other people wanted to weigh in, but I just say I like that we have this product coming in. I think that it balances out some of the other things that have been going in. We definitely have a need. I personally don't think the pathway is needed, but if it stays, I wouldn't fight for it either way, I guess. But I personally don't see a need for it as much. There's plenty of other options, either going through or around this. So I'm going to make a motion to remove that. But I did have a question before this with the one that you said we didn't really need to talk about, but they brought up was the A1I. Is there anything that we need to condition in regards to that condition?
Commissioner Grove, A1I is the pathway one, but A1B is the affordable housing component. But no, there's no need to make anything. Mr. Starman and I will continue working with the applicant to massage that language to make sure, by the time we get to council and after council, we have it all buttoned up and in agreement for everybody.
Yeah, I would agree that, I think it's the position of this commission that we do like to see this stay classified as affordable housing, because this seems to be
Yes.
done right. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, there's just I think a few hiccups on some of the language in it and the way that they will do the rents versus what we put in the original provision. And again, it's just a wording thing.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casale.
before a motion is made, I've got another question for staff. Is the path, is that something that that they could work with the HOA of was it wood something there to the north and put that on can it be even put on that, the easement set that over the piped lateral there?
Commissioner Castellani, that I called that out in my staff report is I would love for them to work with that HOA and try to get that open space area more activated. So yes, you could modify that condition and say, work with the adjacent HOA. And if not, keep it along the north boundary. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Making notes. We all good?
We're good unless Mr. Yearsley raises his
I
hand.
have no comments.
All right. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend to the city council file number H 2021-0092 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 6th, 2022, with the following modification: that condition A1I is modified to have the applicant work with the HOA to the north on relocating the pathway as listed to the lateral.
Madam Chair. My apologies. Commissioner Grove, I think you left out the word approve or deny. I didn't get a verb there.
Oh, approve. Can we have that in wherever I said it? You want me to do it again?
Now we can slide it in there.
Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend approval for H 2021-0092 with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would the commissioners like a 5-minute break?
Please.
Even 5.
This is Chris. Just a reminder, you are unmuted in the room, so you mute your microphones if you'd like.
Caleb, are you ready over there, or Chris? Did we get Chris back?
I'm ready here.
Okay. All right, we will resume with H-2021-0083, and we'll begin Friendship Subdivision. We'll begin with staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is Alan Tiefenbach, Associate Planner at City of Meridian. Okay, this is an application for an annexation zoning to R8 and preliminary plat for 41 lots. The property is located south of Shinden and west of Locust Grove. The Brookdale Estates subdivision is to the west, which is here. The Height, and that's zoned R2. The Hightower subdivision is to the east. That's here, that's zoned R8. And the Saguaro Canyon subdivision, which is down here, is zoned R4. There is an existing church that is located here. This property was proposed for annexation zoning to R8 and a plat for 48 lots. That was the Bull Ranch subdivision that was proposed in 2015. That was subsequently denied by the council with density being cited as the primary concern. This property is recommended for designated for medium density residential, which is 8 to 12 dwelling units per acre. This application is for annexation of just a little over 10 acres of land with the R8 zone district and a preliminary plat, like I said, to allow 41 building lots and 7 common lots. North Elk Ranch Road, if you can see my pointer, if I'm not doing it too quickly. This is a private road, and it presently provides access from the subject property, which right now is a house, which is here, to Shinden Boulevard. This subdivision proposes to connect to 3 existing local streets, which already stub at the property. So one of them will be East Lockhart Street to the west. That would be here, and you can see it down here, but I'll show you on the plat here. East Lockhart to the west, East Talon to the east, which is down here. And North Sonita to the south, which is down here. They are also providing a stub to the church to the north, just in case that property develops in the future. The Uniform Development Code states that when a property has an existing access from a state highway and an applicant proposes a change or increase in intensity of use, the owner shall develop or otherwise require access to a street other than the state highway. In this case, they already are showing 3 existing accesses and 1 stub. As a condition of approval, staff recommends the applicant vacate all the interests in North Elk Ranch Lane, which again would mean they could no longer use this as, for access. Again, because the property already has 3 existing points of access and will have a 4th. The plot shows the north slough is bisecting the property at approximately a 45-degree angle. That's what you see here. There was some discussions about how it was going to be rearranged, but we have worked it out, and the owner will reconfigure this toward the northwest corner of the property. This will be coordinated with the irrigation district. The applicant has submitted elevations of the single-family homes for this project. These homes appear to meet design requirements for single family, and they're consistent in general with the architecture of the existing surrounding residences. Staff has expressed several concerns in the staff report. 2 of these included, well, the first one was including removing a lot at the south to be more consistent with the lots in the Saguaro Canyon subdivision number 2 to the south. The other concern was for the applicant to reconfigure lots 1 through 10, block 1 along the eastern perimeter so that the property lines align with the lots in the subdivision to the east. The applicant submitted plans today which show a lot has been removed from the south. And that's what I showed with these arrows, if this makes sense. So this is what you saw in the staff report. There were 4 lots down here. This is what you see today. So they've taken away one of those lots and they've moved that lot up to here, which was previously open space. When I go to here, you'll be able to see the difference with the open space exhibit. So the one on the left where you see block 3, that was the open space before. What you're seeing there on the right is now the second open space because this new lot has been moved here. So they did increase the lot sizes on the south to be more consistent with the adjacent subdivision, but it also decreases the open space from almost 15% to a little more than 12%. Now, under the current code that's in effect now, they would be required to provide 15% open space, but this came in at the time when only 10% was required. So they're still slightly over what they would have been required had they, when they submitted under the previous code, but they are under what would be required under today's code. As of this morning, staff has received one letter in opposition. This was from the property owner, from one of the developers of the properties to the west. This was concerned in regard to the amount of properties that are being zoned R8. They were proposing that it would be more appropriate to be zoned to R2. About the lots to the east, and I'll back up so you can see these. One of our concerns were all of these lots on to the east, the way that they line up with the properties here, they're slightly offset. It's not a deal killer, but staff's concern with that is that, first of all, the fence lines would be really kind of weird. And it would also make the ownership kind of funky because you wouldn't be able to just logically figure out where your property ownership is. So they are slightly offset. Staff has mentioned that was a concern to the applicant. The applicant's moving forward with the configuration as is. I'll leave that to the planning commission to decide if that is an issue to them or not. But with that, this plat does meet all the requirements of the UDC. It is consistent with the designation of the comprehensive plan. They have met the minimum requirements for the open space and the amenities. With that, then, staff recommends approval with the conditions that are in the staff report. We would support the site plan that they submitted today, but again, we think that the lots to the east should be configured with the lots next to them. With that, I'm done and would stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Confirm. Oh, sorry. I was just corrected and sorry about that. I did make a typo. The density there is 3 to 8 dwelling units per acre, not 8 to 12. That was my bad. I just missed that in my presentation. So they're still within their designation. It's a little on the high side, but 3 to 8 is what they're allowed, not 8 to 12. So I stand corrected.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, my name is Joe Canning, and I'm with Centurion Engineers in Boise, Idaho, 5505 West Franklin Road. And I am here tonight with the applicant, Mike Homan, and we may share part of this presentation. It'll depend if he thinks I missed something. So we'll see how that goes, but Mike is here. I just wanted to briefly note the staff report. We thank Alan for his efforts on this. I must admit that in an effort to react to the staff suggestions in the original staff report, we've been pushing stuff around here the last couple of weeks, and with holidays, it's been a little bit tough. But he did get the correct or current layout in the presentation tonight, so we appreciate that. And we have to apologize. It's been a little hectic here lately, so my apologies on that. And Alan did mention, I think, the two things that were in the staff report that were particular issues for us. Number one was delete the lot along that south boundary in that southeast corner. However, we agree with that. The other issue was the lot lines along that east boundary, getting them to align with the lot lines to the project to the east. And I'll discuss that a little more later. I did want to comment on the comp plan designation. The comp plan designation is for medium density residential, which is 3 to 8 units per acre. We're proposing 41 units at about 4.1 units per acre. So we're actually at the low end of the comp plan designation for that medium density residential. And I think it's worth a moment just to talk about the property to the north. The Friendship Celebration Lutheran Church is there. The comp plan has that designated as an MUC. It's currently in the county. If annexed and further developed, the project will probably come forward as a mixed use of maybe R15, R40, and commercial. I think that's kind of key to the use in this project that we're proposing tonight and how we try to transition from the existing neighborhoods up to what could happen to the north. And even if it doesn't develop, there are some significant open areas to the north of this project that are the churches, of course, but could certainly be a benefit to the Friendship subdivision occupants. And the other important thing I think to note here is that there is a Settlers Irrigation District lateral through here, that slough. That has a notable impact to the site design. Actually, it's quite large impact to the site design. There's approximately 1,200 feet of pipe necessary to relocate that lateral. That's 36-inch pipe. It's reinforced concrete. It's a considerable expense to the project. And it did lay out some of the goals of what we tried to do when we did the layout for the subdivision, such as some of those. We wanted to place those in a minimum of 30-foot common areas because Settlers has told us they want a minimum 30-foot easement for that pipeline. So all of our goals, we tried to put that pipe in at least a 30-foot common area. We wanted to place it near the streets. We've had issues in the past where laterals had to be torn up in backyards and neighborhoods, rather large pipes. It's a heck of a mess, a war zone. If this pipe would ever have to be replaced, its access from the public streets is, in my opinion, huge. It really helps the future use of that lateral, maintenance by the crews of the Settlers Irrigation folks. It's a real asset to the operation of that lateral. And the goal was to minimize utility crossings. That's part of why we picked the common areas as we did. There is only one sewer crossing, a private sewer service that has to go to that existing house that will cross that lateral. The main lines will cross under it, but all the services are going to avoid it. That was a huge part of the impact we had on the design to the project. The staff report issues, transitions of lot size. This is where I get back to the two comments in the staff report that we were concerned about. One was to remove one lot at the southeast corner of the project. We agree with that. We did that. And that's the layout that Alan showed you tonight. However, we did move that lot to the interior of the project by that cul-de-sac at the southwest corner. The other issue is aligning the lot lines along the east side of the project with the existing lot lines to the east. We were a little puzzled by that comment. The structures that are east of it are rather large. They take up almost all the width of the lots. Our first thought was actually an offset property line may be better because at least the occupants of Friendship would have a little corridor that they can see down on those buildings from the east. However, the main driving factor was the Settlers Irrigation lateral. If we did line up those lot lines to the east, the common area that's to the east of us along that south road it's less than 20 feet wide. One of our goals was to maintain a 30-foot easement minimum for the Settlers. That's why we have that rather large common area on the south side of that row along the east side of the project, was to make for sure that that irrigation lateral relocation would not interfere with any of the homes that could be built within Friendship. So I think the real issue with the comp plan is compatibility of neighborhoods. And they have 9.5 lots adjoining our property. We have 9 building lots. So I think it's quite compatible. And I just wanted to mention that this is a little bit of a difficult site to develop. The cost of that irrigation lateral is significant. And not that cost is a matter or an issue for approval of the subdivision, but it certainly is to make it possible to develop. That's one of the main reasons we opted just to move that one lot from that southeast corner back into that open space. There is more than adequate open space for the project to meet the code when it was submitted. So we're really trying to maintain those 41 building lots. It's quite important to the success of this project. Construction costs are through the roof. I can't even imagine right now what it's going to cost to put that 1,200 lineal feet of 36-inch pipe in, but it's going to be quite significant. A few other things. There's an existing pathway on the west boundary near the southwest corner. It comes over from the subdivision from the west. Of course, we're going to connect to that, bring it into where our cul-de-sac is. We're proposing a new pathway to the church property at our northwest corner. To be honest, part of that's to cover the irrigation lateral. The irrigation lateral will run in that area, but once again, the goal was to make sure it was in a common area. Friendship subdivision is surrounded by development. It's essentially an island in the city. that could provide much needed housing to the area. We believe we've proposed a quality style of project that will help fill the need for housing. We respectfully hope that the commission supports the annexation, zoning, and preliminary plat. And with that, I will end. I don't know if Mike wants to add anything. Apparently he's okay. So I'd stand for any questions of the commission.
Any questions for staff or the applicant? Commissioner Seal?
Madam Chair, yeah, just what are the amenities that are being provided with this?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal. I hadn't looked at the landscape plan for a while, but there are some, I believe there's some picnic areas proposed. There are, of course, some pathways proposed that will be going in. Those are the primary amenities.
Mr. Seal, I believe that there's a playground or like a tot lot, a picnic table and a bench. That was my understanding.
I think you're right, Alan. There is a tot lot with the picnic area, correct? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Staff or the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Do we have anybody signed up to testify on this application? Chris, we have Caleb running to the back room, but do you have anybody online?
Madam Chair, we had nobody sign up in advance. There are some people in Zoom that they want to raise their hand if they wish to speak.
Okay. Okay, we have one person on the list here that's indicated a wish, need to testify. That's Mike Honan. Okay. That being said, so we do have some on Zoom that have raised their hand.
Madam Chair, nobody's raised their hand, but there are people watching. So I just wanted to tell them if they do wish to speak, they can raise their hand.
And is there anybody in the room that wishes to testify on this application? Okay, come forward.
Hi, I'm Karen DeGrazia. I live at 6197 North Rosa Springs Avenue in Hightower Development. I have a question. Why are they rezoning it from an R4 to an R8? That's my question. Thank you.
Any other question? Any other, anyone else wishing to testify online or in the room? Okay. With that, would the applicant like to come forward? Oh, Alan.
I was assuming the commission was quite versed to be able to answer that, but just to clarify, this is being annexed. The property is not in the city at present. So it's not being rezoned from R4 to R8. It's being annexed into the city from county zoned property and being zoned to R8.
Does the applicant have anything to add, or do we have questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, I don't really have anything to add. I'd be more than happy to answer any other questions.
Any other questions, or do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, just one question. I know you're meeting the minimums for what used to be, but you're not there for what is now. So, you know, and I'm not looking at anything extraordinary that I would give you a pass on for today's standards. So would you be willing to get rid of that house that you moved in order to increase the common area? And
I think I would have to direct that to the applicant rather than myself. Mike?
Yeah, I would I'll pile on since we're chatting about that. I mean, at least some significant, something other than a tot lot. I mean, something significant in that open space since it is minimal, if not removing that lot.
Mike Holman, 68.
Mike Holman, 6820 West Randolph Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83709. What was your question, sir? I'm sorry.
My question was on the common space, and basically it meets the requirements of what was, not what is. So, and if I was looking at something today that was, essentially on the requirements of today, I wouldn't give this a pass. Not meeting the 15%, much less we're down to 12%. So instead of adding that lot back in, that was moved over to block 3, lot 8 there, would you be willing to forego that so that the common space meets the 15% requirement of today?
When we did that, it was at 10%. That's what we negotiated the property for. Then we got this huge ditch that we got to pipe, concrete pipe, and that it's been a really challenging site to do for an infill. And we were thinking we'd be about right in the center, half of, we're at about 12, between 10 and 15%. And then we were going to do a tot lot and then picnic tables and have some features in there. And then again, to the north is that church. We even named the subdivision. We had a really good meeting with them and we named our subdivision Friendship and stuff. So it's a tight project to do. And I didn't have to do that big pipe. I would just say, yeah, one lot's nothing, to lose, but we are really tight on this. I'd like to keep it if I could.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, would you have any thoughts on some other significant amenity instead of just a picnic table or?
We would look at adding, more to that if it was something.
Make it substantial.
Yeah.
Any other
Sure.
questions? Yep. Commissioner Casanelli.
And this is more for staff. Why, since this project is still at this stage, why, first of all, when did it switch from 15 to 10? And why are we looking at the old requirements versus the current requirements when we're not even approved yet?
Caleb would know the date that it actually was approved because he's smarter than me and he was here. And secondly, generally when you make an application before the new code goes into effect, we have to review it under the old standards, not the new standards. This was submitted before that happened. When the pre-app and it started, it was before the new code was in effect. Caleb, do you remember when it was passed? Was it July-ish? Really? Time moves fast here.
Madam Chair, members of the commission. No, it wasn't that long ago. It was just this fall. So, but yeah, as Alan stated, you're vested with the laws that are in effect when you submit the application, not when you get to hearing. So they've been in the queue and are reviewed against the plans and laws in effect at the time of submittal. So that's why the discrepancy there between the 10 and 15%. I can find the exact date that it went into effect, but yeah, it was just this fall.
Okay. So that date's not relevant. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion to close the public hearing on H-2021-0083?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2021-0083. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Usually.
I'll step up. I understand the applicant's plight of having to install the drain, but I still like the idea of having that 15% open space and losing that lot. I don't know. It's for me, it's still fairly dense, and having that one lot and having that open space to me makes it more palatable.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned a little bit more about the open space than I am about aligning those lots on the east. I think, I mean, those look fairly tight anyway. From what's on the other side of it. And I'd hate to see them try to finagle those even tight, the ones on their side that tight.
Madam Chair, I agree. I think you'd end up having to lose a lot there to make those line up. And I'd prefer to maximize my open space than to try to have the lots line up.
Yeah, I'm more appreciative of the losing the lot on the south side and making that fit in better with what's on the south.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Grove.
I would like to see a little bit more in terms of how this lays out with where the amenities are going, what's going on. And I'm going to say something that I don't think I've ever said in the 2+ years or whatever I've been on here. I I think I would almost rather see this be R4 than R8 in how it's laid out, just because it's landlocked. But
All right, that's it. It's not a rally. Thanks.
I don't know. I have some issues with the general layout, and I don't know how to describe it quite yet.
Mr. Gasnelli.
I'll go with the easy one. I don't have a problem with the east property lines lining up. In my subdivision, internally in my subdivision, I don't line up. And I actually I can see between the houses when I look at my backyard. So I think that's a plus. And I don't think there's any negative to not lining up. Other than if everybody chooses a different fence style, it's a little weird, but that's the easy one. I understand the density wanting to transition into the mixed use community on the north and to the east. That entire, with the exception of the R2 there, that's right next to it, everything else surrounding it is R4. It almost makes sense to maybe look at it as an R4 for that reason, just because, and the other thing is I look at if council, and granted it was a different council at the time, but if council didn't like the R8 before, I mean, we're talking 7 lots in there. You know, would they like it at this? So it's odd to me why maybe they didn't come back as a R4 as opposed to that. And then with regards to the open space, I guess we kind of gotta, you know, it was 10%. So that's I guess how we have to look at it. I would, however, want to see more when it comes to the amenities. I don't think a tot lot and a picnic table is and a couple paths are enough, frankly. So I'd want to see more there. I would like to see, I'm that one lot. I personally, I'd like to see some of the lots on I'm not looking at the layout of it right now, but I'd like to see the maybe the lots on the north. Maybe some open space up there because those are pretty tight up there. That's how I'd look at it.
I know that they're trying to get the open space to you know, where that pipe is running, but it seems like the open space is real close to all the bigger lots, and it would probably be more useful.
Well, if they kept that one that they moved over there and then opened up something along the, it looks like it's block 5 up there. I'm not sure, but one of those, you know, those lots up there, if they opened up one of those for some more common space up there, or I would be willing to trade that. Again, I'd like to see a little bit lower density in there, but I would trade off better amenities for the same open space. I don't think the amenities are strong enough. I don't know what that looks like. But I would want to see an improvement there. Oh, and I did have a question for staff. The existing house that's there, is Elk Ranch Road, is that gone altogether? Is that house now going to take access off Lockhart? Is that gonna-
Correct. Condition of approval of this is that they vacate the interest. So the house the existing house would no longer be able to take access from Shendon.
Okay,
They would have to vacate their interest in that easement.
okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Sue.
this is one of those, I like to call this the have your cake and eat it too, because it seems like the remaining house that's there is kind of selling the land around it. I don't know if that's the case here, but it seems that way. So, trying to have your cake and eat it too here. So the layout is, to me, it looks like they're taking all available land and trying to put everything that they can on it. And the open space is just an afterthought. So I think it's unfair to the people that are going to have to live there. I know they put some thought into where the sewers are going to run, and I understand there's a huge expense in piping that ditch, but at the same time, it just, it's unflattering. Basically, it just looks like it is done to maximize the return on investment, and there's just not a lot going for it after that. I mean, it's basically just going to be a place for people to park their cars and, more garage farms. So I don't know if it's appropriate at this time for where we're at. I know, compared to 2015, I know we have a lot higher tolerance for a lot more density, just because the way the city's growing. So, I mean, it's not multifamily, or we'd probably have a fleet of people in here arguing this. So I just don't think that it's, I don't think it's maintaining that kind of premier atmosphere that we're trying to do, get for Meridian. So, Meridian in and of itself is landlocked. There's no more land out there that we're going to accommodate. So what we have to do it, and we have to do it right. And I just don't think this is it.
Comments, motion?
I'm just amazed that my fellow commissioner, I'm always up for R4. Over R8. So I'm just kind of amazed that my fellow commissioners have made that comment. So I'm very supportive of an R4.
So do we continue this? Or?
If you're gonna, we have to open.
We'd have to reopen it.
Yeah, let's reopen. I get a motion to open H-2021-0083.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to open H-2021-0083. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Mike Coleman, 6820 West. Two mics here. 6820 West Randolph Drive, Mike Coleman. I would agree to lose one lot. You guys could decide where it was best fit to lose the lot. Your idea to the north was, kind of have some space over there.
Madam Chair,
What was your
Mr.
idea?
Grove,
I would prefer not to redesign this here.
on the fly, yeah.
I would say we either continue or deny, but trying to sit up here and design and figure out which lot to remove doesn't make sense to me.
I would say probably have it come back with a little more, some thought on making it usable open space and not just open space as a buffer to the existing home. I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that's where the hangup is. If you're gonna have the subdivision, built out, the amenities need to benefit the subdivision, not just be a buffer to the existing house. Yeah.
What about if it was approval subject to, where I agree to lose one building lot and leave it up to city council?
I'm guessing, I'm not thinking you're understanding. It's not just about losing one lot. It's about making this open space functional and usable to the subdivision. Am I saying that? I hate
Yes,
to put
ma'am.
words in my fellow commissioners' mouths, but
I think you've said it eloquently.
okay.
With that extra lot that I would take out, remove, I would be in compliance, I believe, with 15% new. Yeah, so I was saying is with agreeing to drop another lot for common space, I should be in compliance with your new ordinance with the 15%. And with an infill piece, this is a challenging site. It had that ditch going through there. We had an existing house. It's a pretty nice home. It's not a scraper house and we're just trying to work with what we can work with. And I think if we left it up to city council to, we'll agree to drop a lot and then submit to Alan some plans where he'd have a chance to review them. And, so this wouldn't be the final say. City council would have a chance to review it and Alan would again. We're just really tight on time as on our purchase agreement. So we'd like to keep it, moving forward. That's what I agreed to make a concession and lose another lot. It's financially tight, but that's anyway, I'll agree to that if that helps at all.
Madam Chair, it sounds to me like, I think we're kind of all on the same page. So if the applicant wants to gamble with city council, I think we can move it forward with a denial. And he can take his chances with city council.
Nice to have a approval there, recommendation. I would maybe can we leave it up to city council has another say so on it and staff. Alan's going to be there for the city council thing that we've worked it out.
Yeah. We're the recommending body and we're kind of here to have staff and the applicant and the public and everybody's opinions kind of come together and we try to clean it up real nice. So it goes to city council with everything worked out. But I'm thinking we're kind of not on the same page here about what we're asking for as far as the open space and not just being one less lot. It's about being functional open space. And so if you're not wanting to continue and bring it back to us, we can recommend denial and the reason for our denial. And then you can take that information and move forward to city council. And, if you've changed a few things that you think meet what our denial reason was, then city council may take a look at that and say, okay, yeah, he met the spirit of what planning and zoning was thinking, or they may have their own. Yeah, it's a recommending body. And so if we deny, we'll give a reason why. And so if you fix that reason by the time you get to council, if you're on a tight time frame, then that's kind of where we're at. Otherwise, we can recommend a continuance if you want to bring back a different design. I think if your thought is you're just going to lose a lot somewhere, I think that's really not what we're asking for.
What would meet your new ordinance, with the 15%. And we can put some thought to work with Alan. Where's the best place? Because we don't really, we want to do the best thing for the subdivision.
Mhm.
and get some input. So we're agreeing to do what you guys want. We'd just like the opportunity to work it out with Alan or our city council thing and not have a denial on our thing. And that's we try to do the best we can with the circumstances on the property that we're working with. Sometimes it's challenging with ditches and other stuff, but I would be willing to really work with you guys if you give me a chance.
Yeah, and a denial doesn't mean that we're not, that you don't have the chance to work with it. It certainly it gives city council our thoughts. And definitely you would have a chance to fix it and move on. Yeah.
Thank you. And
Mhm. Do you have any other questions for Alan?
Hi, Miss Chair, but not for long, and members of the commission. Even though she is tenured and she'll be here forever. Just a quick note for the applicant probably is if this does get continued, we're talking, and I'll have to defer to Chris, but the next one in January is totally full.
Yeah.
And February, I think, filling up. So we're talking about, at best, the first week in February. And I'll defer to Chris Johnson if we can even make that hearing.
Right. So, I mean,
Because it has to be 15 days in advance to get the plans to you. So, it's not going to be quick. We're at more than a month.
I think at this point, then based on the applicant's preference to keep moving forward in his timeline, I would think it would be best to move forward with denial and recommendations on why we're recommending denial. And that would give him the opportunity to fix it and let city council go on from there.
Agreed.
Thoughts? Yeah, okay. So at this point, if we have no more questions for staff or the applicant, we need to close the public hearing on H-2021-0083.
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2021-0083. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Seal.
After considering all staff, applicant, public testimony, I move to recommend denial of the city council file H-2021-0083 as presenting during the hearing on January 6, 2022 for the following reasons. So that they can provide more open space and more functional open space that is integral to the subdivision, and that it is better suited for R4, not R8.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend a denial of H-2021-0083. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Mhm. We have one more item on the agenda. No, we are not done. We will address this one. I would love to nominate Commissioner Seal as president for the 2022.
I'll second that
Chairman.
nomination.
Chairman.
I'll second that.
No, I think you've done a great job in filling in Commissioner Seal, and I think you would be a great commissioner, and it's a.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend Commissioner Seal as our new chair. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
I don't get a vote.
Nope.
Well, you can.
You can, but you've been outvoted.
Madam Chair, can you repeat who made the motion? I put down Commissioner Seal made the motion, and I'm sure that's not correct. So I want to get that correct on the record.
Former Chair McCarville made the motion.
Thank you.
Former Chair McCarville would also like to move that Commissioner Grove be the new vice chair.
Second.
Third.
And Commissioner Grove does not get a vote.
Cool.
Man, this is awesome. This went very fast. I'm excited about it.
It has been moved and seconded to vote Commissioner Grove as vice chair for 2022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. I think it's fabulous to get.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
we
Ursula.
adjourn.
Second.
Oh, second and third. It has been moved and seconded to adjourn.
Aye.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries.
Hey, Alan, if you can stay online with me for a minute, I'll walk you through closing down.
Chris, I was just gonna hit the stop recording. Are we good?
Yep, hit stop recording and then you'll go to video switching and turn. You'll go to video.
It just
video
talked
switch.
to me. What am I doing now?
I've stopped it. You can, once you hit stop recording, then go to video switching.
Got it. Hold on. Okay.
You see where it says Zoom on all 4 of those TVs?
I see 4
Yep,
or
yep.
yeah, I see 4. Yeah.
Put your finger on Zoom and just drag it off to the left. It'll turn off the TVs.
Drag them over to the left.
Yep.
All 4.
All 4. That'll turn the TVs off and then lock Commissioner McCarville there so she can't leave.
Okay. Hopefully I did that right.
Looks like it. Just thank you very much. Lock up
That it?
and you're good. Yep. Have a great night. Thank you.
Okay. I'm locking